I'm Stella Hill from RedC, an agency working across qual and quant research based in London. Families at Home is our self-funded study, one of many that we commission to help us and our clients understand people in the UK. It's one of our favourites, all about modern family life. It's a qual piece, diary-led, and it's been running for about 5 years. And across that time, we've spoken to around 26 families in total, and many have been with us since the beginning. So it can make for quite an emotional read sometimes. We've seen some really sad times like divorce, illness, but we've also seen some really joyous moments. So new homes, new family members, very importantly, lots of new pets. All in all, a real deep dive into family life. So the latest wave, we've interviewed 12 families via our diary method, but we also decided to push the boat out this time and commission some quant, just to quantify some of those sort of trends and findings that we were seeing from the qual. So with our partner Yonder, we commissioned a NAT rep study of 2,000 adults, and within that, we were able to connect with just over 600 parents of kids 0 to 18. So what's the general mood at the moment? Well, for parents, they've got quite an optimistic outlook on what's to come. But also, as we sort of start to dig a bit deeper, we see that they're quite tired, they're busy, they're experiencing quite a lot of stress about their finances, potentially their living situation, and also maybe for some of them, elderly relatives as well. But ultimately, they're looking to recognise the happy moments in life that they're really, really grateful for. The quant sort of reflects this overwhelm, though. So what we found with the quant is that 58% of parents are overwhelmed by life's many responsibilities, and that's compared to 34% of non-parents. And, take from this what you will, but women are the most overwhelmed across both of those groups there. In terms of younger children, they're feeling really positive, and actually their sort of positivity is very much about looking forward to the next big thing, which is usually time off school. So whether it's the weekend or whether it's the next set of holidays that are approaching, Easter or summer, they're really excited about time out. For the older teens, we start to see that kind of stress of adulthood coming in, where they're maybe worried about schoolwork or looming life decisions. At the time that we fielded this, we had sort of mock exams coming up, GCSE exams. So you can kind of see that tension really building amongst sort of teenagers. And when we came out of the pandemic sort of 5 years ago, we asked our parents, how are you feeling about, life resuming? And obviously everyone was happy for life to be resuming, but there was this worry that life would go back to the frantic way that it was pre-COVID. And actually, there's some things that they'd learned around spending more quality time with their family. But we've asked the same question again 5 years on, and actually 5 years on from the pandemic, life has returned to its usual pace. School clubs are back in full swing. Many people are back in the office, either hybrid or full-time working in the office. And actually, life has gone back up to full speed. And the pandemic's obviously had, a huge impact on many people. But for our parents, one of the key things that it's impacted is their child's attitude towards learning and school. So we found that 1 in 3 parents agree with this statement, that COVID-19 lockdowns have affected their child's attitude at school. And actually what we found is that amongst teenagers, so 13 to 15s and 16 to 18-year-olds, this increases significantly. You can see there that 48% of parents of 13 to 15-year-olds have that sort of concern around learning and school. And if you think about it, those kids that are kind of like 13 to 15 years old now, when a pandemic hit, they were kind of, year 5, year 6 at primary school, really important formative years for education and kind of thinking about how they're going to be at secondary school. So mental health is a key concern for parents as well. And actually, what our study found was that 2/3 of parents are worried more than ever about their child's mental health. And actually, 7 in 10 parents view peer pressure as a major concern. And actually, when we fielded the quant, it was just around the time that adolescence was hitting our screens on Netflix. And we kind of hypothesized that maybe that would come out in some of the data. But actually, what we found is for both of these, in terms of concerns over peer pressure and concerns around mental health, it was actually parents of girls 13 to 15 that were the most concerned. And interestingly, 8 in 10 parents think that it's really important to regularly discuss feelings and emotions openly with their child. And for this one, again, it was mums that found it more important to have those open discussions with their children. And another area that causes concern that sort of came out of our quant data and supported some of the qual findings that we've been seeing is that almost 6 in 10 parents consider their financial situation to be the same or worse than it was 5 years ago. There's this real sense when we were sort of looking through the qual diaries that money really is going on household and food, and there's not really that much left for little treats at the end of the month. And many families are kind of putting their treat money into saving up for that bigger event or a holiday. Holidays are hugely important to families. So what we actually found is that 46% of parents were saving for a holiday versus just 30% of non-parents. So what are families doing as shared activities and for entertainment? Well, there's a key tone of optimism and everyday joy is being found in those simple things. So whether that's hiding together under the blankets and pretending it's a cave, to moments where everyone's on the same page and enjoying and laughing about the same thing. And we also just hear about, spending time together as a family, eating good food, everyone happy, chatty and laughing. And all these things are really, really important. In terms of outdoor entertainment, we hear about the popularity of the cinema. And whilst it's expensive, parents look for offers to be able to afford this treat. And major new titles prompt cinema visits, and in particular, it's films that span across the ages. This is really important for families with multiple children. So films that have been popular are things like Paddington in Peru, Wicked, Dogman, Mufasa. We also heard at the time about how excited people were for Minecraft because they're really films that work across the ages. We also asked our kids and teens about their favourite shows. So for our younger audiences, what we found is that they were mentioning those trusted, long-standing brands, and those are the brands that they prefer. So we hear about things like Peppa Pig, Bluey, Paw Patrol, Mickey Mouse's Clubhouse. We also heard about what families are watching. So TV shows like The Traitors, Gladiators, Strictly Come Dancing, and the latest instalment of Planet Earth are trusted family co-viewing opportunities. But beyond this, we kind of start to see that there's a distinct lack of content for tweens. So once children outgrow their favourite shows, such as Paw Patrol, Peppa Pig and Bluey, there's little new content aimed at that tween-teen age group. And as a result, children are beginning to watch shows that are meant for older audiences. So we see shows like Gavin and Stacey, Friends, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and Young Sheldon being popular this time. But also some of those shows that are actually probably a bit too old for tweens and teens. So, for example, we've heard quite a lot about Squid Game. And I just think it's probably, worth thinking about the opportunity that exists there for content for that sort of tween and young teen audience. And our data found that 63% of parents do agree that it's easy to find TV shows to enjoy together as a family. But actually, it gets trickier for parents of teens age 13 plus. They struggle to find suitable shows to watch with their older children. And actually, when we dug a bit deeper into the data, we found that this was particularly pertinent for parents of teenage boys, a real struggle to find that content to share with them. And actually, 1 in 2 parents believe that their children are more interested in social and online video than they are in TV and film. And actually, that becomes significantly higher with age, from about 7 plus, and it peaks at around 13 to 15 years. But interestingly, what we found was that at around 16 to 18, as those teens sort of become young adults, they start to rediscover that TV and film again. So despite sort of all the competing sort of digital pulls that are out there in the world, I think it's a really good moment just to again stress the importance of things like days out and nights in. So things like trips to the zoo, walks in nature. We had a few mentions of the National Trust, family meals out, exciting activities to places like theme parks, and even sort of, stuff that you do in the home like board games, particularly for that 7 to 12-year-old age bracket, and time reading together as well. All of those things are still really, really important to family life. And what that does for kids and teens is it provides that emotional safety and security. It gives them a break from the overstimulation, and it also gives them a sense of rootedness in their family identity, which is really, really important. Social media is loved by teen kids, but it's a constant source of stress for parents. Social media is key for young people. It helps them discover new and aspirational trends. It gives them entertainment and connection to peers, and it allows them to self-express and have a sense of belonging. And obviously some of the brands that we hear so much about, we've got TikTok. TikTok really comes through as being big for beauty and fashion trends. It's also really important for that humor element, lots of time lost to sort of just sitting and laughing at, memes on TikTok. But it also drives brand engagement through product inspiration via influencers. In terms of YouTube, it's an interesting one. It's a real form of entertainment. And we hear about 2 sort of different forms of content on there. Obviously, gaming content, hugely important. We hear in our diaries a lot about second screening, where, you're playing a game, but you're also watching someone play a game on screen, which is crazy, I know. And we also hear a lot about family vlogs as well, and how important they are, and that sort of serves into that sort of aspirational side of things, watching other families and how they're interacting. And interestingly, YouTube is the one that spans across ages, because we've got YouTube Kids, which is used by the younger children, and many parents sort of rely on that to help kids kind of not wander off down the beaten path into the sort of YouTube tunnel of tons of videos. YouTube really gives a little bit more censorship. And then we have Instagram, which is again very much about following influencers, browsing trends, finding out about new fashion that's out there. And then the final one, which is Fortnite, which is, that it's loved for that game-based social interaction. And actually we hear a lot about tweens and teens using it to sort of hang out, to chat, to co-play. It really is like a new forum for them, just to sort of be at one. And I guess it goes back to that self-expression as well. Social media is an active concern for parents. Parents of younger children, so under 12s, are particularly wary of YouTube, Roblox and TikTok. The concerns centre on addiction, exposure to influencers and content control as well, but also in-app purchases. Gaming by nature is addictive. If you've ever tried to get a 13-year-old down to dinner when he's just about to level up on Fortnite, you'll understand. And 2/3 of parents worry that their children are exposed to harmful content on social media or online, and that's regardless of the child's age. And parents do struggle to manage the content that their children view online, and they feel accountable. They feel it's their responsibility to monitor what their child watches online. And 3 in 5 parents find that managing screen time for their child is a constant issue. And actually, that doesn't change across sort of age demographics. Parents of children, teens of all ages really struggle to manage screen time. So we've been talking a lot about sort of social media, but really, it's not just digital brands that do it for kids and teens. Actually, brands that foster creativity continue to be at the heart of what kids love. So we asked kids and teens what brands they love and actually found that they split quite nicely into 4 buckets. The first bucket is around fashion. And actually, there's a real appetite for all levels of fashion brands, from budget to aspirational. So from brands like Primark right through to the more expensive brands like White Fox, Nike, North Face, JD Sports. And some of these brands, the items that you get from them are really, really expensive. But what's exciting about these brands for teens is the e-commerce element, and they love to order for themselves and kind of see the follow through of delivery and then unpacking. It sort of really excites them. And they also love to go to the shops as well and, almost do like a mini haul. So, we hear from people who kind of go and spend their pocket money at Primark and end up coming home with, 10 or so items and really feeling like they got a lot for their money there. And then the second one is around toys. Toys are still really, really important. And actually, what we're finding is some of those toys that we would class as collectibles are coming in. Collectibles really drive ownership and spark excitement. So we hear about brands like Jellycat, which is like a plush soft toy, which, 5-10 years ago you might have just bought for a newborn child, but actually now is spanning across ages. There was a TikTok trend last year around people buying Jellycat toys for graduation presents. And we also hear a bit about toy shops as well, still being really key. They sort of amplify passions and they're quite vital to building discovery. And yes, parents still dread those sort of moments on a Saturday when they're in a toy shop and they have that sense of dread of how they're going to get their kid out of the toy shop. But, they still form a really important role for particularly children under the age of 10, going in and having that tactile moment, seeing the toys. The third one is around digital interaction. And I've sort of split this into 2. There's the streamers, and streaming just enables choice and independent viewing, and that's really important. And then the second is around gaming. And all of these games that we hear mentioned are those that offer real excitement and, competition. And that's what makes them hugely popular. And probably as well, it's worth thinking about the kind of instant reward that a lot of these games give. Gone are the days where somebody might sit and spend like 3-4 hours playing a level. Actually, now it's all about getting that instant hit, getting that reward, whether it's in Minecraft, Roblox or Fortnite. And, kids and teens are able to do that with these games. And the final one is around interests. And really, this is really about passions and facilitating fandom and about viral moments that really matter. And there's a few example brands here that have really managed to do that. So, for example, Sephora, which is a beauty brand, has become a real magnet for young audiences, creating viral moments such as Get Ready With Me. And it's really inspired sort of young audiences and, not just teens, but kids as well, to get into beauty products and start using them and start recording themselves. And then Stanley's another interesting one as well. So it was a cup traditionally used by blue collar workers and outdoor enthusiasts. My granddad used to take it to work on the building site with him. But it's really found new appeal for younger audiences for a number of viral moments. And suddenly it's made it the sort of must-have cup of the year, just through Stanley's sort of careful targeting of young female audiences through the look and the brand feel of the cup. And just to talk in a bit more detail about those gaming brands, children are drawn to digital games where they can express their creativity. It's really, really important to them. And playing with friends also makes it much more fun. And the creative nature of games that are out there now allow kids to kind of really immerse themselves in a world that they've created. And we hear a lot about Minecraft, Roblox and Fortnite being able to do this, but also as well for the younger kids, Animal Crossing is really good for that. And sort of back to that point before where they get that kind of instant gratification and, hit. The content across all of these is really, really varied. You can be playing a game in Roblox one day and then a totally different sort of game within Roblox the next day. It offers so much opportunity for variety. And that sort of collaboration and ability to play games with friends and family is really important. A couple of other games that have been mentioned recently, Goat Simulator's come up. I don't know if anyone's heard of that. It sounds crazy. It's an open world game where basically the whole purpose of it is that you become a goat and you get to go around and wreak absolute havoc. And it's got that kind of ragdoll physics to it, where if you go and butt somebody, they don't sort of fall over. They kind of wobble around and come back up. Really good fun, and we should probably all be playing it at some point. For parents, there's a mixed bag of brands that they do like and that they don't like. For those brands that they're less certain about, obviously, the user-generated digital content brands fall in there. So brands like Roblox, Fortnite, YouTube, TikTok, Minecraft are all brands that parents shy away from. And actually what it is with these is, as we talked about earlier, it's that lack of control that they have over these brands and what they're doing. And then in terms of other brands, things like Smiggle and Hype, which are considered to have a sort of low perceived value for money. And we had another brand that came up last year, which was Air Up. I don't know if you've heard of Air Up. It's like another water bottle. And kids were going absolutely crazy for it at primary school. The bottle was about £30 to £40 and it was a must-have item just because it made the water a slightly different flavour. But from a parental point of view, it's a lot of money for a product that doesn't really seem to have the value. In terms of brands that parents like, we see a lot of those media brands from trusted distributors coming up, such as CBeebies and Disney. And then in terms of toy brands, I mean, obviously brands like Lego, we see Lego always has an emotional connection across all ages, but actually for parents, it's seen as being a really valuable brand. And, it's tactile as well, so it has the longevity of being able to be played with. And then in terms of more sort of high street led brands, we see brands like Clarks and Marks and Spencer's coming up, as well as H&M and Jojo Baby. And also, interestingly, some of those more athleisure brands for teens like the North Face and Nike, which parents do value a lot. Now, I don't have a crystal ball to read into the future, but I think it's important that we just have a think about what's coming out of our diaries and what's coming out of our quant data in terms of what the future might hold for our families. But what we do know is that 3 in 4 parents are worried about how global events and trends might affect their family's future. The concern is undeniable. And we've done other studies as well. We have a consumer mood monitor that we run in the UK that shows that 28% of parents think that the UK government is doing a good job of managing the economy, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's more positive than non-parents at 11%. So, they're concerned. They have a little bit of faith in the UK government. 72% are worried about the impact of things like the US tariffs and the impact that it will have on their personal cost of living. But children remain hopeful and excited for their futures. We hear about older teens and how they hope for success in their next steps, whether it's going to uni, whether it's in their exams, whether it's getting into sixth form. And then that kind of middle-age group of 7 to 14-year-olds, very much about their immediate circle, fun, hobbies, friendships. They're excited about moving up in school, whether it's for next year group or whether it's going to secondary school, and, you know, focusing on their friends and whatever their hobbies might be. And for our under sevens, they've got really big dreams for fun jobs. And one of our favourite quotes across the whole 5 years is from this little boy, 5 years old, who told us about his dream to be in the best boy band ever called Sweets. So I think we should all be looking out for that new boy band in the future. So there you have it, a whirlwind tour of family life at home. It shows key moments for brands to step in with meaning. It highlights the mounting pressures that parents are facing. And it ultimately reminds us that amid all the noise, it's creativity and brand passion that are going to connect with kids and teens. It's probably also worth saying that this really is a whirlwind tour of everything that we've done. There is a huge slide deck behind this of about 70 slides. So this really does just skim the surface. So if you want to see the full deck, please do get in touch with me. My email's up there. I don't have a fancy QR code today. But yeah, please drop me an email or see me afterwards. Thanks very much. Bye.